This is Winning with Holistiplan. My name is Roger Pine. I'm one of the co-founders of Holistiplan. And today I'm with my dear friend, Lauryn Williams. She is the founder, financial advisor. She's the founder of Worth Winning. And I'm super pumped to talk with her because it's been a long time. Lauryn, great to see you. How you doing?
I am doing wonderful. And I am, in fact, a CFP now. I don't know if you knew, but
No, I know.
yes,
Sorry, I should have said that.
you know,
CFP.
financial
Yep,
advisor is just so bland. Blah.
totally. Yeah, CFP financial advisor. Lauryn, we should tell the story of how we know each other, how we met. Do you remember how we met each other?
I, I think you should tell the story, and then I fill in with color commentary.
Okay, well, I mean, all right, so my version is our firm was in like College Station, Texas, which is not a big town, not a huge town. It is the home of Texas A&M. And then randomly one day, the person at reception is like, "Yeah, some rando stopped by with a resume."
That's good
Just,
color commentary.
just like rando dropped off a resume at the front desk and said like, "Hey, I saw there are a lot of CFPs in this building, and I'm looking for work while I'm in town." And we're like, "All right, let's take a look." And it was an unusual resume, right? And we'll
Why,
talk about
why was it
that.
unusual? I don't understand.
Yeah,
What
we'll
do you
talk
mean?
about that part. But yeah, and so we worked together. So you and I worked together. We hired you, and we worked together. I guess in your first job in financial planning. Is that true? I don't know.
That is very accurate. You
All
left
right.
out a few. Let me add the color commentary.
Okay,
So
go for it.
I was in a deep state of distress because I had no idea what I was going to do with life after sport. I wanted to help people organize their finances. I blindly enrolled into the certified financial planning coursework and was like, hey, I should probably hang out with other certified financial planner people. Like you said, College Station only had 2 financial planning firms, and you guys had way more CFPs. And I was like, I'm going to go there. I spent all day making a resume because I didn't have one in the
Nice.
profession that I was currently in. I show up there and I say, hey, I want to work here. Here's my resume. And yeah, the girl definitely looked at me like I was a rando. She did go off to the back and come back. And she said, you need a cover letter in order to be able to turn this resume in. We're not actually hiring, but we absolutely would need a cover letter either way. So I
Dang.
went home,
Okay.
Googled how to make a cover letter, and returned because I think she thought she was getting rid of me, but she wasn't.
Nope.
And then the interview process started, and I had my first job in financial planning, and it was night and day from the service I had received with the financial advisors I'd worked with previously. And that is what made me want to join the industry.
Wow, that's amazing. Although I'm kind of sad that I don't remember the cover letter at all. Because if you did all that work to write a cover letter and all I remember is your resume, I feel bad.
It probably was not amazing, but I went and I made
I mean,
one.
you got to start somewhere, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
So you alluded to this, but I mean, of course, your history before you were a financial advisor, a very accomplished athlete, 4-time Olympian in Summer and Winter Olympics. So obviously that was a big part of your life, and we'll talk about that. Actually, we should talk about that because when you joined us at that time, I know your inspiration around that time was you wanted to really help athletes who are in that position, who are individual athletes in particular, or at least Olympic athletes. So maybe we should start there. I'd love to hear about what are some of the unique challenges that you faced and that other athletes like you face, that those of us who are not Olympic athletes or not even close to Olympic athletes may not realize are part of their financial lives.
Yeah. Well, the first piece of the puzzle is that athletes are going to retire twice. We're going to retire once from sport and then a second time, like everyone else, at some point in life. And while we see kind of the big 3 sports, or probably the big 4, the hockey, basketball, baseball, footballs of the world, there are a lot of Olympic athletes who compete full time and earn a living doing so, but not the kind of living that you would earn in some of those bigger sports. And so we need to plan accordingly. And we also have majorly fluctuating income. So
Mm,
that's also a key piece of the puzzle. And so I did enlist the help of a financial advisor, but I didn't end up in the hands of an advisor that was doing a really good job. Like you said, was not a certified financial planner. I learned about the world of fee only. And that's something that's really important. That's become really important to me as I've learned kind of the industry, but not a good experience. And that's what made me really wanted to decide I wanted to help athletes. It's like, hey, we're out here looking for proper advice. We have good income, but we don't know where to get that advice. And certified financial planning, actually, like I said, a Google search is what led me to find that while I was still competing. So I am the first American woman to earn a medal in both the Summer and the Winter Olympics, 4 Olympic Games, 2 silver medals, and 1 gold medal. Um, and you all met me when I thought I was at the very end of my career. And it's like, I really got to get my money stuff together. So I was trying to learn about the CFP really more so for myself than it was because I knew or understood that there was a whole industry behind this.
Hmm.
Little did I know that I was not at the end of my career. I was going to go on and try the Winter Olympics after leaving
Yeah.
College Station,
Yeah,
right?
that's right. I remember watching it from the office. Yeah. Um, one of the things that I don't know if we ever talked about this, but my brother-in-law was went pro in tennis for a while, and it's very similar. Like he, you and he, I think what people don't realize is like you're an entrepreneur, like you're running a business. I mean, I think like, yeah, if I'm in the NBA, like there's a team bus and they tell you where to go and where to stay, and here's when practice is, but when you're an individual athlete in particular, like you're deciding what meets do I go to or not? Like what's worth the money to invest in this? I've got sponsors that I have to keep happy. That's a customer. I got to keep, I got to work on my brand and make sure all the things that had to go together, and even like international travel, getting visas together and all that stuff. It was really amazing to me, the level of entrepreneurship required. And it's probably surprising to him and probably surprising to you when you went pro and how you were like running a business. And that may not be something that every athlete is prepared for. Just like a lot of advisors who work with, say, doctors, they have the same thing. Like you go to medical school, no one tells you that you got to go run a practice with 30 employees. Like that's not a thing they teach you how to do. And I imagine when you leave college and you're like, I'm going to go pro, there's not a way to say, okay, here's what you're getting into running this business. Am I accurate in kind of classifying in that way? You're the CEO of a business in a way.
100% accurate. And I can even attest to the physician piece of the puzzle as I have a physician husband that is in private practice. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
we did a lot of like figuring out entrepreneurship together.
Yeah.
As I started my second business, I had a little bit more experience in the sense that I did as an athlete, you have to run a whole business, but so many athletes don't realize it or think of it as that when that's exactly what it is. Your coach, your massage therapist, your nutritionist, those are all employees, if you will. They may not be W-2s, but they're part of your team that are investing in this business so that it can continue to earn money.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and just for those of us who are thinking about hiring people one day, just remember that, yeah, on paper, this athlete may not have a lot of office experience, but they've got a lot of life experience because they've been running this business for years. And so just keep that in mind when you're thinking about a Lauryn Williams walking into your office with a fresh resume.
And no
Um,
cover letter.
and no cover letter. Um, and you actually wrote a book, right, about this topic. I want to give it the right name, called The Oval Office: A Four-Time Olympian's Guide to Professional Track and Field, which I'm assuming kind of covers this topic. So the missing guide that you didn't have when you left school to help people hopefully navigate this world. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's my gift back to the sport that gave so much to me. There were so many things that I just had to learn by doing, and I felt like this information needs to be shared. Athletes need to have the opportunity to learn without bumping their knee or putting their hand on the hot stove, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And so it includes branding, picking a coach, moving from one place to the next, adjusting the jet lag, and of course a financial chapter on what is a SEP IRA versus a solo 401k, and what are the different types of advisors out there. What kind of questions should you be asking them so that you can have organized finances because you are running a business. You need to set money aside for taxes. All those sorts of things are covered in that book.
Wow. Wow. Okay. On another call, I want to learn the story about how you ended up writing a book, because I know that's a whole project in and of itself. You probably need a
Oh,
book you need another guide about learning how to write a book. Maybe that'll be your next book, right?
it was not the most fun process. I'll give you that as a spoiler alert. And I do not plan to write another, even though people were like, we want your full life story now. And I'm like, no, thanks.
Got it. All right. Well, we'll have to wait for the movie to come out then. That's fine.
Right.
So, rolling the tape forward. So now, you retired from being a professional athlete, and so starting your firm as a financial advisor. And my understanding today, you and I have kept in touch, not as much as we should have, but I've kind of kept an eye on things. And it seems to me that one unique thing about your practice as a financial advisor is you have a unique focus on group type settings, group type in either events or engagements. And that's really interesting to me because I think, one of the things that I've kind of devoted this stage of my career to is how do we make financial planning more scalable? How do we get
Mm.
beyond the just like, I'm one human who can serve 80 other humans? That's it. Well, the way I'm going is like technology. How do we give more efficiency back to this advisor so they can serve 85 humans instead of 80? But you're doing something interesting, which is these kind of group events. So I'd love to hear how that developed and where that stands now as part of your overall practice and offering.
Yeah, so I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent for a second and say my mom always says that we are a family that puts the fun in dysfunctional. So, very short story is that I have 5 sisters and 2 brothers, and I don't share the same mom and dad with any of them. I either share a mom or a dad with either with some of them, with each of them. There we go. And the relevance there is like you would never know that outside of me saying, telling someone that. I just say I have 5 sisters and 2 brothers, and that's the end of it. But where the fun piece of it comes is like I'm able to think outside the box in a lot of different regards because I've had this like very incredible blended family. And so I like to think that I put the fun in financial, because we don't have financial planning, we have financial planning over here. So
Okay.
um to go back to where it all started, one of the big things that stood out as I was working at Brio was, there was a minimum number of assets that a client needed to have. And I remember talking to Natalie one day at lunch about, my personal finances and thinking like, gosh, she's such a wealth of information. Like I was making 200K as a professional athlete. There was no way for me to amass with the kind of level of intellect that I had or financial literacy that I had $1 million in order to be able to get access to such a wonderful firm. And that was kind of the catalyst for, like you said, the thing that got me really excited about the financial planning industry, but also saying like, how can I put the fun in financial and figure out how to be able to serve people in a different way? So I came as kind of this blank slate saying like, there's this way that financial planning is done and the way that people grow their assets under management and the way that firms run. And I'm like, all of that sounds boring and I don't want to do it like that. How can I do it instead?
Hmm.
So to get to the point of your question, I thought about the things that I needed as an athlete. I needed, like I said, basic literacy. Even though I had good earnings and I was willing to pay for help, it was like there's some other thing. I needed someone to say things in layman's terms. I didn't want, someone to talk over my head. I wanted to be okay to, use an F-bomb if I needed to, or to wear a t-shirt and make people feel comfortable as opposed to being in a big conference room looking at fancy charts and graphs. That's not how we operate as athletes. And I found that was not how a lot of young professionals in general work. We like community. We like being able to connect with one another. And so, my main service offering at this point is financial retreats. To your point, it's a group offering where we go to a location, either local in the city. So kind of drive in for a staycation, or we go on an international location, which Colombia will be our first international location coming up here in January. Um, and we learn money stuff. We walk through the pieces of a financial plan over the course of a series of days. You have other people's real life experience to be able to kind of fill in the gaps in addition to my financial expertise, pointing you in the right way. And then you also get accountability from one another. So you may not need a long-term ongoing financial planner, or maybe you do, but you weren't really open to even working with a financial advisor because of some of the things you've heard, or you don't really understand them. You get in a really fun environment, you learn the basics, and then it's the catalyst for you to be able to continue on organizing your finances.
I love that. One of the things that I've always talked about with folks, especially when I talk to like college kids, trying to give advice to new people entering the world, is I'm like, find accountability partners. And that's what we had, to use the sports analogy. Like that's what we usually have. You join like a gym or a boot camp or a CrossFit. Like people like those sorts of settings because yes, there's a coach who's an expert, but then you're part of this community who are keep holding each other accountable. And the problem is within our culture, we don't talk about our finances with other people. And so like we have these one-to-one relationships with our coach or financial advisor. But if you're willing to let people, if people are willing to opt into, I'm going to share some of this information. It'd be interesting to know like how deep people go with their personal numbers when they're in these groups. But once you're willing to get past that cultural barrier of sharing your finances with people, it's just like joining a CrossFit gym. Now, instead of just a coach relationship, I have all of these people rooting for me, trying to help me meet my goals, which
Mhm.
for something as important finances, like why do we not do that? And again, it's just the cultural barrier we have. How do you get past that privacy piece to it? And like I said, this cultural barrier of sharing personal details with other people.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. People are like, I don't know. Like, do I even want to go to a financial retreat? You want me to talk about my money stuff with strangers?
Hmm.
But once they've already taken the leap, like you said, it's breaking down those barriers. And the easiest way to do that is transparency. So we start with the money mindset course. It's an hour-long course that I put together that they take independently before coming to the retreat.
Hmm.
And then we start the retreat by talking through those questions. And they're a lot more qualitative than they are quantitative. And so
Hmm.
you're building rapport there because you've kind of talked about your money mindset. And I'll say that I lead by talking about my own personal financial situation and the things that I
Mm.
experience. So, like I said, it's getting rid of me, the fancy expert in the room, and bringing me down to the same level. I'm your peer.
Right.
I've got money. I've got money things going on just like you. Every person does, and I think that's one of the things that happens. The people think of the financial advisor, they're going to be judged. You know, I'm the worst client ever. All this kind of like narrative, but it's like, hey, everybody is doing the best that they can, and there's a way to optimize your finances, and money is emotional for everybody. So me sharing, I think, kind of opens the door for them to be like, oh, okay, this is kind of different, and she just told me something really personal. I can also share something really personal. It sets a tone for the rest of it when we do get into the more quantitative pieces of the puzzle.
Wow. That sounds really fun, Lauren. I want to come. Can I come or
I
no?
I think you might not benefit as much as others from participating, but it is
No.
really fun. You're
Yeah,
right.
I bet it is. I mean, all of us could take some time to really focus on these sorts of things. You know what I mean? Whether you're a financial advisor or not, we've all got stuff we got to clean up on the
Yeah.
to-do list. Okay, that's great. That's super interesting. And I think that's really unique. And I hope that it continues to work out as well as it seems to have. I'm going to talk about tech stuff because that's just what we do on this series. So tell me about, because you have this unique approach, or at least one service offering is so unique. I'd be interested in hearing how your firm approaches your tech investments, how those tech investments work within the context of that particular type of offering. Like, presumably, we're not like, I don't know, maybe when we're in Colombia, we're running reports or we're not. But like, how does your service offering, just your traditional service offering, those service offerings, how are they enabled by tech, or how much are you doing outside of tech?
We are huge on tech. So we all just survived this weird thing called a pandemic, um, where everybody had to figure out how to go remote, become virtual. And one of the really cool things is that I was dedicated from the very beginning to running a virtual company, because I value travel. That was one of the big things that I didn't want to give up when I transitioned from sport to life after sport. So I didn't have like a whole meltdown when COVID started. We were already using a lot of tech tools,
Hmm.
and we've kind of continued to increase as we go. So to your point, I don't just have the group offering, which is an in-person piece of the puzzle and uses a lot less tech, but not no tech. And our other service offerings are very tech heavy. So I'll give you a quick list. We're using Zoom, like I said, we're pre-COVID, Slack to communicate with our inner team, text expander. So that's a really cool way to be able to, write 3 letters and a whole paragraph show up on things that you say very frequently.
Okay.
Um,
Text
exact
expander.
text expander, yes.
Hmm. All right.
So you can type in like ZZ. Oh, so ZZOS is one of my favorite, and it's like ZZ. It stands for other stuff in my brain, and it's like a whole rundown of like financial resources that I like frequently give people. So then I can just like
Cool.
delete out the 2 or 3 that are not relevant to you. But yeah, you can text, you can zap your whole life in that regard. Zapier. Speaking of which, I zapped the whole person out of a position and saved myself a bunch of money, with like all these manual tasks that were having to be done. So a client finds us on a website. We don't take phone calls. Occasionally someone finds my phone number somewhere. I don't know how, but we don't have like a scheduler or a come into the office. You click this button. It gives you a form to fill out. It sets up folders for us internally. I have all the information I need. We use Trello Boards. So the Trello is another app that I use. It's a task management tool. I'm a little bit unique. I told you I put the fun in financial planning. I also use Trello as my CRM, even though it is not a CRM tool.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Loom, I would say, is probably the other one that I need to bring up. So Loom is a screen sharing, like screen recording option. And it has been the best thing for me because what I realized is that I'm audible in the way that I like to transfer information. So it could take me an hour to write an email that, is just 4 or 5 sentences to get back to someone.
Mm-hmm.
It's much quicker to say, hey, Roger, wanted to answer your question really quick. Here's what I was thinking, da, da, da. And it automatically, copies as soon as I hit the stop recording button. I just drop it into the email and I say, here's a video to explain what you asked me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been great. My clients love it as well because they audibly hear it and get a better idea. They can follow along in the screen versus having to set up a whole meeting to discuss something that maybe is only a 5-minute topic.
Sure. And it feels more personal because it's you talking to them. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
love
things
that.
get lost in text. Yeah.
Yeah. We've been thinking about Loom ourselves because we have the same thing. Like someone will ask a question and trying to show them the thing on screen. The only thing we've had is like, are we going to what if the name of a client ended up on Loom and then we put it on there? So we just have to work out some of that stuff. Right? You don't have that problem because you and your clients have the conversation of, I'm going to use these systems online. Like I'm not in a position where I can do that, but I'm so ready to use something like Loom for exactly the reason you state, which is like 3 paragraphs versus a minute of talking sometimes to get an idea across. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And what's interesting to me also is you mentioned the CRM. I don't think that's that as rare as you think. I think a lot of the folks who have built their tech stacks from scratch kind of built from the perspective of here's the functionality, here are the requirements I need to meet. And rather than just saying, oh, the standard tech stack is CRM, XYZ, I need to buy these things. The advisors who I've met who kind of approach it the way you do, which is like, I'm going to add products based on the things I need. A lot of times there's not a CRM in the middle of that, which is maybe a comment on the CRMs in the world, but it's not as rare as you think, I would say, for people who are kind of building from scratch the way you have. So
yeah, it's good to know that I am not alone because
no
people
need
are
to
like,
apologize
what?
for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, most of my peers are like kind of mind blown and I've shown them kind of how I'm using it and they're like, oh, this is super cool. And I just, like you said, I tried many of the traditional CRMs and it's just like, this is too clunky. It doesn't go with the way that my brain thinks. And Trello works a lot better for me.
Cool. Well, I should say Lauryn was one of our original Holistiplan beta testers. That's how far back we go. And so
way back. Yes.
I really appreciate the support that you gave us in the early days. You've been so enthusiastic of a supporter and a friend. And so I really appreciate just having you there from the beginning. And I know you introduced this to some of your colleagues who are kind of in study groups of yours. So again, thank you so much for being there from the beginning with Holistiplan. That means a lot to me. So
I definitely drink the Holistiplan Kool-Aid. My associate planner is logging in more than I am nowadays. But one of the things I remember too about my internship was my job was to do tax return reviews.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember that.
I don't, but yeah, we had a big old checklist, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my goodness, he's automated this thing that I had to do all the time. Yes. And of course it does so much more than that now. But I remember thinking about like all these little cool, quirky things that people don't see on their tax returns. And you guys having made a list to say like, and we frequently caught stuff like me following that checklist was like, gosh, you wouldn't believe how much stuff gets missed when an accountant is doing the tax return. And it adds so much value as an advisor to be able to use a tool like Holistiplan and not have to have a whole person going over a checklist.
You walk into that building today with that resume, like, nope, sorry, position's filled. Right. We already got Holistiplan. Sorry, Lauryn.
No, thank you. We don't need an intern.
Needs to be a really good cover letter in that case. Yeah. All right. Well, one thing we always do on this series is we call it Roger in the hot seat, and it's like an unrehearsed. If you have an uncomfortable question you would like to ask me, or about the product, or about the business, or anything like that, this is your chance. I'll
Ooh.
answer
Does it
honestly.
have to be financial related? Because
I
I
mean,
got
I don't know
lots
how
of
personal you
questions.
want to get, but I'll do my best to answer honestly. Yeah. Yeah, it could be anything. Yeah, what's on your
I,
mind?
I'm gonna go with one non-financial, and then maybe I'll circle back with a second financial because dare to be
Okay,
different. I only
let's
get
hear it.
one question, but I'm gonna say I want two. Um, if you got to choose your name, what would it be and why?
Choose my name.
Your name.
Man, it's so hard to think of having a different name, Lauren. Um,
Did you always want to be a Roger?
yeah, I think your relationship with your name is a lot of times your relationship with yourself. Like I think there were
Mm.
times when I was younger when I probably wished I was someone else, and I probably would have wanted like a more like normal name, like Mike or Steve or something like that. Because Roger's kind of like a not a super common name and kind of like a nerdy sounding name, but I'm totally comfortable with who I am now, so I couldn't see changing it. So
I wonder
I
what
don't
that
know.
says about me. I'd totally be Kim if I could name myself way back in the day. I wouldn't change my name to Kim now, but I
Right.
always wanted to be Kim when I was a kid.
Right. And I wonder if that's the same thing. Like, what was it about you then that would have wanted, why, what drove you maybe wanting a different name, or was it having a different identity or a different way of people seeing you? And now I'm too old to care. So I'm just Roger, and that's who I am. So I couldn't see changing it, honestly. I don't know. I wouldn't
Oh,
have a good, better idea. Tony, maybe Tony. Just sounds like a
wow.
cool guy name, Tony.
I feel like you could be a Tony and not an Anthony. You'd have to be just a
No,
Tony.
I could not pull it off. You and I both know I'm not cool enough to pull off Tony in a
I
million
mean,
years.
you're in theater. You can be anyone you want to
That's
be.
true. I have been. Okay, that was a good question. You must use that question sometimes with other people. No?
Nope, nope. I thought of that one just for you. They told me to prepare in advance a question, and I was like, "What would I ask if I could ask Roger anything on the planet?" And I did. I thought of some like tax stuff. Really, it was like student loan, more businessy. Like, what do you think about the tax implications of
Nah.
this? Yeah, see, that's boring. Like, that
Right.
does not put the fun in financial. Like,
Spot on. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, good. Well, I'm going to ask you one last question. Is that
Uh
okay?
oh. Sure,
So
let's
we
do
always
it.
we always finish with the question of because it's like winning with Holistiplan. It's like big. We're talking like big wins, like trying to be the best we can be. This is maybe too easy of a question for someone who is a four-time Olympian, but so maybe you can surprise us with your answer. What is the most epic thing you've ever done, professionally or personally? Would you say?
The most epic thing. I don't know. My life has been pretty epic. I will say, but I don't think that it is epic because of the various sports things. I think the sports things gave me perspective to be able to think that other aspects of my life are epic. And so, like most recently, like most epic is going to be hard to answer, but most recently it was doing the first financial retreat. So in October of 2021, I did the financial retreat. I was terrified. Like you said, it's outside of the box of what everybody else is doing in financial planning. I was nervous. I was like, I'm sure my husband wanted to divorce me for the 2 weeks leading up to, and like the 2 or 3 days before I left town to get ready. It was like preparing for a competition because I wanted so passionately for what I had in my mind to kind of come to fruition,
Hmm.
and it to be as impactful as I thought it could be. And it was. So it was
Great.
incredibly epic because I got to see, four women change their lives over the course of a weekend by simply having the guts to be able to try something that, like you said, no one thought you could do in financial planning. So I don't know if it's my most epic feat, but it is definitely high on the list of things that have happened to me recently.
Well, that's amazing. Yeah, kudos to you for trying something new like that and then executing on it the way I know that I doubt anyone who knew you had any doubt that it would work out great. So that's fantastic to hear. Well, Lauren, that's all my questions. And I got to tell you, it's been such a pleasure talking with you and just watching your career over the years. I'm so grateful that we connected in such a weird way, fateful way, when you were in town training with the A&M coach, I guess. So that really has impacted my life in a positive way. So I appreciate the opportunity to get to know you and watch your career. And I just hope that one day we'll get to hang out in person again. I don't know when that'll be, but
As soon as you stop hanging out at conferences and start hanging out in the cool places.
I need a memo on where the cool places are. I'm not generally invited to those places, but yes, we'll make it happen.
Sounds good. We can't tell everybody where the cool places
Right,
are, so
right.
I'll
That
have to,
we'll stop the
ping you later.
recording. We'll stop the
Right.
recording. You tell me the cool places. Good. Well, thank you, Lauren. It's been such a pleasure, and congratulations on all of your success so far. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.